Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo. Jai. Thank you, Bhagavatananda, for the ecstatic mridanga playing. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayat Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Jai. So, welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. We are reading from Canto 10, Chapter 3, entitled The Birth of Lord Krishna, verses 23 to 31. We'll be focusing on 28. So, let us start reading from the translation of 23. We've got the mic.
Sukadeva Goswami continued, Thereafter, having seen that her child had all the symptoms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Devaki, who was very much afraid of Kamsa and unusually astonished, began to offer prayers to the Lord.
Sri Devaki said, "My dear Lord, there are different Vedas, some of which describe you as unperceivable through words and the mind. Yet you are the origin of the entire cosmic manifestation. You are Brahman, the greatest of everything, full of effulgence like the sun. You have no material cause, you are free from change and deviation, and you have no material desires. Thus the Vedas say that you are the substance. Therefore, my Lord, you are directly the origin of all Vedic statements. And by understanding you, one gradually understands everything. You are different from the light of Brahman and Paramatma, yet you are not from them. Everything emanates from you. Indeed, you are cause of all causes. Lord Vishnu, the light of all transcendental knowledge."
After millions of years, at the time of cosmic annihilation, when everything manifested and unmanifested is annihilated by the force of time, the five gross elements enter into the subtle conception and the manifested categories enter into the unmanifested substance. At that time, you alone remain and you are known as Ananta Sheshanag.
O inaugurator of the material energy, this wonderful creation works under the control of powerful time, which is divided into seconds, minutes, hours, and years. This element of time, which extends for many millions of years, is but another form of Lord Vishnu. For your pastimes, you act as the controller of time, but you are the reservoir of all good fortune. Let me offer my full surrender unto your lordship.
No one in this material world has become free from the four principles: birth, death, old age, and disease, even by fleeing in various planets. But now that you have appeared, my Lord, death is fleeing in fear of you, and the living entities, having obtained shelter at your lotus feet by your mercy, are sleeping in full mental peace.
My Lord, because you dispel all the fear of your devotees, I request you to save us and give us protection from the terrible fear of Kamsa. Your form as Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is appreciated by yogis in meditation. Please make this form invisible to those who see with material eyes.
Oh, Madhu Shudana, because of your appearance, I am becoming more and more anxious in fear of Kamsa. Therefore, please arrange for that sinful Kamsa to be unable to understand that you have taken birth from my womb.
O my Lord, your all-pervading Supreme Personality of Godhead, and your transcendental four-armed form holding conch shell, disc, club, and lotus is unnatural for this world. Please withdraw this form and become just like a natural human child so that I may try to hide you somewhere.
Last one.
At the time of devastation, the entire cosmos, containing all created, moving, and non-moving entities, enters your transcendental body and is held there without difficulty. But now this transcendental form has taken birth from my womb. People will not be able to believe this, and I shall become an object of ridicule.
Okay, thank you. So let's go back to text 28. And we'll do the Sanskrit. Satvam Gorad Ugrasenat Majonas Trahi trastan britya vitrashadhasi. Rupam chedam purusham dhyana dishnyam. Ma pratyaksham mam sadrisham krishishta. Satvam Gorat Ugrasenatmajanas. Trahi Trastan Britya Vitrasahasi. Rupam Chedam Purusham Dhyana Dishnyam. Ma pratyaksham mam sadrisham krishishta. Please chat. Satvam goradu grasenatmajanas. Trahi trastan britya vitrasahasi. Rupam chedam purusham dhyana dishnyam. Ma pratyaksham mam sadrisham krishishta. Satvam gorat ugrasenatmajanas. Purusham dhyana dishnyam. Ma pratyaksham mam sadrisham kashishta. Satvam gorat ugrasenatmajanas. Trahi trastan britya vitrasahasi. Rupam chedam purusham dhyana dishnyam. Ma pratyaksham mam sadrisham krishishta. Satvam gorat ugrasenatmajanas. Trahi trastan britya vitrasahasi. Rupam chedam purusham dhyana dishnyam. Ma pratyaksham mam sadisham krishishta. All right, let's do the word for word all together. Saha, your lordship. Tvam, you. Gorat, terribly fierce. Ugrasena atmajat, from the son of Ugrasena. Na, us. Trahi, kindly protect. Trastan, who are very much afraid of him. Britya vritrasaha asi, you are naturally the destroyer of the fear of your servants. Rupam, in your Vishnu form. Cha, also. Idam, this. Purusham, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Dhyana Dishnyam, who is appreciated by meditation. Ma, not. Pratyaksham, directly visible. Mamsa Drisham, to those who see with their material eyes. Kashishta, please be. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. My Lord, because you dispel all the fear of your devotees, I request you to save us and give us protection from the terrible fear of Kamsa. Your form as Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is appreciated by yogis in meditation. Please make this form invisible to those who see with material eyes. Purport. The word dhyana dishnyam is significant in this verse because the form of Lord Vishnu is meditated upon by the yogis. Dhyana vastita tadgatena manasa pashyanti yam yoginaha. Devaki requested the Lord, who had appeared as Vishnu, to conceal that form, for she wanted to see the Lord as an ordinary child, like a child appreciated by persons who have material eyes. Devaki wanted to see whether the Supreme Personality of Godhead had factually appeared or she was dreaming the Vishnu form. If Kamsa were to come, she thought, upon seeing the Vishnu form, he would immediately kill the child. But if he saw a human child, he might reconsider. Devaki was afraid of Ugrasena Atmaja. That is, she was afraid not of Ugrasena and his men, but of the son of Ugrasena. Thus she requested the Lord to dissipate that fear, since he is always ready to give protection, abhayam, to his devotees. My Lord, she prayed, I request you to save me from the cruel hands of the son of Ugrasena, Kamsa. I am praying to your Lordship to please rescue me from this fearful condition, because you are always ready to give protection to your servitors. The Lord has confirmed this statement in the Bhagavad Gita by assuring Arjuna, you may declare to the world, my devotee shall never be vanquished. While thus praying to the Lord for rescue, Mother Devaki expressed her motherly affection. I understand that this transcendental form is generally perceived in meditation by the great sages, but I am still afraid, because as soon as Kamsa understands that you have appeared, he might harm you. So I request that for the time being you become invisible to our material eyes. In other words, she requested the Lord to assume the form of an ordinary child. My only cause of fear from my brother Kamsa is due to your appearance. My Lord Madhusudana, Kamsa may know that you are already born. Therefore, I request you to conceal this four-armed form of your lordship, which holds the four symbols of Vishnu, namely the conch shell, the disc, club, and the lotus flower. My dear Lord, at the end of the annihilation of the cosmic manifestation, you put the whole universe within your abdomen. Still, by your unalloyed mercy, you have appeared in my womb. I am surprised that you imitate the activities of ordinary human beings just to please your devotee. Devaki was so afraid of Kamsa that she could not believe that Kamsa would be unable to kill Lord Vishnu, who was personally present. Out of motherly affection, therefore, she requested the Supreme Personality of Godhead to disappear. Although because of the Lord's disappearance, Kamsa would harass her more and more, thinking that the child born of her was hidden somewhere, she did not want the transcendental child to be harassed and killed. Therefore, she requested Lord Vishnu to disappear. Later, when harassed, she would think of him within her mind. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militandena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpatyubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvya Eva Chapatitanam Pavanivyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatade Shatarane. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai. So here we have Devaki talking to Krishna, who was just born and who's manifesting his four-armed Vishnu form in front of her. And we see here that she's experiencing some conflicting and inconceivable emotions, right? So on the one hand, she's seeing that Krishna is Lord Vishnu, right? Lord Vishnu, he is the Lord. He's not just an ordinary child. He's standing before her in the full glory of his greatness and majesty as Lord Vishnu. And he does that to reassure her that he can't be killed. And she's seeing that. And she's even saying that. Right? She's even saying that, you know, you are the supreme controller. You, the creation, whole creation comes from you. After the annihilation, there's only you remaining. And in the interim, there's only you. She's basically, you know, recapping the 4 seed verses, the Chaturshloki Bhagavatam, you know, stating the essence of the absolute truth, that Krishna is everything. Everything comes from him. Everything rests in him. He maintains everything. He is everything, and he makes everything happen. And there he is standing before her. And she also talks about how time, which is controlling everything in this material world, is controlled by him. And how death personified flees in fear of him. And that he dispels the fear of his devotees. And yet, she's still afraid, right? She's acknowledging all these things about him. He's standing right there in the presence of God, who is the Supreme Controller, who, takes away all fear. She's afraid. So this is very conflicting, right? And it seems like totally irrational, totally emotionally unstable, right? Like one minute she's like, you're the Supreme Personality of God who delivers everyone from fear, especially your devotees. And here I am, your devotee, sitting here in your presence, and I'm like trembling with fear. So what is going on here? How do we understand these emotions of Devaki? And if Krishna takes away the fear of his devotees, right, like in the song that they sing in Vrindavan every morning, Udila Aruna says that Rajajana Bhayahari, right, that says that he takes away the fear of the residents of the Vrindavan. So why is he not taking away the fear of Devaki? Why is she so fearful right in his presence? She's his mother. Like, you don't get much more intimate relationship than that. She's totally pure. So why is she afraid? So the thing is that Krishna takes away the devotees' fear of material misery, takes away devotees' fear of, being caught in the cycle of repeated birth and death, fear of pain, fear of suffering, fear of dying, fear of loss. He takes away their material fear. But he doesn't take away the fear that comes from love. Because if he would do that, he would have to take away their relationship with him. Right? So Devaki's relationship is that she's Krishna's mother. And it's totally natural for a mother to be always worried about her child. Right? Any parent knows that you're constantly worrying about your child. Right? Especially if they're not with you, you're every moment. What are they doing? Are they okay? Is someone teasing them? Are they afraid of something? Are they eating? Are they safe? Right? And it doesn't stop. No matter how old the child gets, they can be, 40 years old and the mother's still worrying about them. So this is the nature of Vatsalya Bhav in relation to Krishna, is that the parents are always worried. So Devaki is going to be afraid for Krishna. She's going to be in anxiety for Krishna. And Krishna doesn't take that away because that actually enhances their relationship. It's a transcendental emotion that comes from her love. And Krishna, even if he wanted to, he couldn't stop those emotions because Krishna can't, he doesn't control the love of his devotees. He is controlled by the love of his devotees. So even if he wanted to, he couldn't interfere with that. So, yeah. And yet it seems ironic that the Supreme Personality of God is there, and he's literally assuring her that I will protect you. And she is simultaneously thinking, no, I need to protect you. So, yeah, this is, Devaki's feelings are not due to ignorance or, not due to just mundane emotions, but it's due to her love. And love, we know, doesn't always follow logic. In fact, it almost never follows logic, right? The ways of love are crooked, like a snake, it says in the scripture. So the material logic would be that God is here, there's no danger. But the logic of love, logic of bhakti, is that if Krishna is in danger, then nothing else matters, right? If Krishna is in danger, then I need to protect him. I'm in anxiety. So what we're seeing here is that spiritual advancement doesn't mean that we become like emotionally numb. It doesn't mean that we don't, we attain this state of transcendental calm, where we're never stressed, never anxious, never afraid. In fact, in some ways it's the opposite. Although in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks a lot about equanimity, right? One who doesn't become elated in happiness or, overwhelmed by distress, that person is very dear to me. So there he's talking about, again, he's talking about material distress, material lamentation, material happiness. So pure devotees are not affected by the material circumstances and the emotions that arise from those material circumstances due to material identification, due to false ego, right? So, yeah, when a devotee comes to the level of Brahma Bhuta, then na shochachi, na kanchati. There's no lamentation, there's no hankering, right? Don't get upset over material things. But that doesn't mean that you're never going to experience emotions in your life, right? Quite the opposite. When we get off the material platform and are no longer influenced by material emotions, then we can actually start to experience spiritual emotions in relation to Krishna. Of course, we can already start to experience some spiritual emotions before Brahma Bhuta, just by our devotional service. Even in the conditioned state, even in the impure state, Krishna reciprocates with us. And we can feel something, right? So we sometimes feel spiritual anxiety, right? The pujari is cooking for the deities and the clock is ticking and you have to make so many preparations and oh no, it's going to be late, or maybe Krishna's not going to like it, oh, did I put enough salt, right? So it's like anxiety, but that's spiritual anxiety because you're trying to please Krishna. Or you're organizing a festival, right? Like Festival of Joy, so much organization needs to go into it. There's the venue, there's the bookings, there's the guests who are coming, the speakers and the musicians and all the stalls and the, all these things that, a lot of anxiety, right? Oh, is it going to rain? Is the wind going to blow the tents down? Are people going to come? Are the musicians going to get in on time? Is this sound system going to work? Like so many things can go wrong. But that's for Krishna because you're doing the whole thing to try to bring people to Krishna consciousness, to glorify the Lord. So there's a difference. So pure devotion doesn't remove emotion, but it removes selfishness. Right? It removes the selfishness which is the cause of material emotion. So Devaki's fear in this situation is not that I will suffer. She's not afraid of her own suffering. She's not afraid of her own harm. In fact, Prabhupada says that she wants Krishna to become an ordinary child so that she can hide him. And he says that if Krishna becomes an ordinary child, it's more likely that he's going to harass Devaki. Right? If she tries to hide him, he's going to come and he's going to be like, where's the child? He can grab her by the throat, shake her, do whatever, Show me the child. I know he's here. I heard him crying. Where is he? Right? She's going to get harassed like anything. But if he comes in and sees Lord Vishnu, then, Vishnu, he's standing there with the Sudarshan chakra in his hand, just ching, and Kamsa's done. So, but she's not worried for her own suffering. So her fear is not I will suffer. Her fear is that Krishna will suffer, right? That this Kamsa is going to come and he's going to try to kill him and I need to try to protect him. So we can very conveniently contrast Kamsa's fear, because Kamsa is also very fearful, right? We've been hearing all along about Kamsa is like, he is racked with fear. He can't sleep. He can't eat. He's just like a mess. So Kamsa is fearful and Devaki is also fearful. But Kamsa's fear is rooted in ego, right? That I am the controller and I have to, stay in my position of power. I can't let anybody get in my way. This person is supposed to kill me. That is not going to happen. So he's afraid that he's going to die. He is going to lose his position. And Devaki, on the other hand, her fear is rooted in love for Krishna, that Krishna might be harmed. Krishna might be put into difficulty. And then we can also look at the results. So what results from Kamsa's fear? Violence, control, throwing innocent people into jail, killing babies, so many babies, this intense paranoia, right, that affects even him, right? Like he's definitely not happy either, nor is anyone else. Persecution of the Brahmins and all these things. Whereas what does Devaki's fear lead to? It leads to more surrender, more service, increased love, increased reciprocation, facilitation of Krishna's wonderful pastimes, right? Giving pleasure to the devotees, like that. So externally, both of them are experiencing the same emotion, but internally, there's a world of difference, right? It's like black and white. So the question is, not what you feel, but for whom, right? Who are our feelings for? Are our feelings for me, or are they for Krishna? And also, what is the result? Do my feelings lead towards, problems, drama, disturbance, or do they lead towards increased surrender, increased service, increased devotion to Krishna? So we see different examples throughout Srimad Bhagavatam. For example, in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, Srila Vyasadeva was despondent, right? He was actually feeling depressed because he had compiled the 4 Vedas, he'd written Mahabharata and the Puranas and all these things, Vedanta Sutra. And after all that devotional service, he was just depressed. He was just feeling really despondent, like, what is wrong, So that's an emotion, but that was a spiritual emotion because it was for Krishna. Because why was he doing all those things? Why was he writing all those literatures? Because he wants to bring people to Krishna consciousness. And then what did his despondency result in? It resulted in the appearance of Narada Muni, his guru, who instructed him, who enlightened him. It led him to, going deeper in his meditations and really focusing on Krishna and Krishna's Leelas and writing the Srimad Bhagavatam so that we have this book here that we can learn about Krishna from. So, and then we have the example of Mother Yashoda, right, when she was angry because Krishna broke the butter pot and he made a big mess. She spent all morning churning the butter and Krishna just messed it all up. And so she's angry, right? That's a strong emotion. She's picking up a stick and she's like, where is that child? I'm going to get him. I'm going to teach him a good lesson now. He can't do this this is not acceptable. I need to train this boy. So her emotion is for Krishna, right? It's for Krishna's benefit. That I can't let my child just do all kinds of nonsense. He's going to grow up being undisciplined and uncivilized. I need to train him to be, a nice person with good behavior, a respectable human being. So, and then what does that lead to? It leads to, one of the sweetest, most charming Leelas, Damodar Leela, which we sing about and relish every Kartik month, which gives a lot of pleasure to Krishna and which glorifies the depth and the purity of Mother Yashoda's love for Krishna and inspires devotees in Vatsalya Bhav to follow in her footsteps. And then we also have the example of the gopis who get jealous, right? Jealousy is a strong emotion when Krishna goes and meets other gopis. But that's also for Krishna, right? They're not jealous because, we are being deprived of Krishna's association, we are suffering. It's not that. It's because we know that no one can please Krishna better than Srimati Radharani, and so we want Krishna to be with Radharani so that he can be most happy. So their jealousy is for Krishna. Yeah. And the result also is that so many pastimes result out of these dealings, these competitive dealings between the gopis, so many lovers' quarrels and Radharani's whole mood of man, which Krishna absolutely adores. So all of these things give pleasure to Krishna when they are for Krishna. And then, I was thinking I'll read a few examples also because in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, our Nectar of Devotion, Srila Rupa Goswami gives so many examples. There are 2 whole chapters that talk about spiritual emotions. There are 33, he enumerates 33 different transcendental emotions called Vyabhichari Bhavas or Sattvika Bhavas that a pure devotee feels in relationship to Krishna. So one of those is disappointment. And the example he gives here is, this is the queens of Krishna in Dwarka telling, my dear Krishna, since I heard Narada glorifying Rukmini before you, I can understand that there is no need of any talking about myself. So this is actually Satyabhama. Yeah, so she heard Narada Muni glorifying Rukmini, and she's like, I thought that I was Krishna's favorite queen, but now that I've heard the glories of Rukmini and how much Krishna loves Rukmini, I feel like I'm just very disappointed that Krishna doesn't love me as much as I thought he did. So I'm not even going to say anything about myself anymore around him. Forget it. So this is an emotion, right? Just kind of wallowing in disappointment. And then lamentation. So when Nanda Maharaj sees Krishna in the sacrificial arena of Kamsa, which we're going to hear about soon. He says, "How unfortunate I am that I did not keep my son bolted within a room. Unfortunately, I brought him to Mathura, and now I see that he's embarrassed by this giant elephant, Kuvalaya. It's as though the moon of Krishna were eclipsed by the shadow of the earth." So he's lamenting that as a father, he didn't properly protect his son. He should have just kept him in Vrindavan. Why did he let him go? And then guilt. So this is Srimati Radharani is churning yogurt for Krishna. And it says, at that time the jeweled bangles on her hands were circling around, and she was also chanting the holy name of Krishna. And all of a sudden she thought, oh no, I'm chanting the holy name of Krishna, and my superiors, my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law are going to hear me. This is very wrong. So then she became very anxious, and she felt guilty that she had done something wrong, and that her whole relationship with Krishna was just very wrong, and she shouldn't be saying something to, disclose that to anyone. So she's anxious and feeling guilty. Let's see. Oh, here's one, pride. So this is from Bilva Mangala Thakur. So he's feeling very proud and very confident in his relationship with Krishna. He says, "My dear Krishna, you are leaving me, forcibly getting out of my clutches. But I shall be impressed by your strength only when you can go forcibly from the core of my heart." You think you're leaving me because, I saw you and now I don't see you anymore. But just, I dare you to try to leave my heart. There's no way. You are not getting away. I have you captured. So that's the pride, the confidence of the devotee. And apprehension. Let's see. Okay, Mother Yashoda. Upon hearing the jackals crying in the forest of Vrindavan, Mother Yashoda becomes very careful about keeping Krishna under her vigilance, fearing that Krishna might be attacked by them. This is an instance of ecstatic love for Krishna and fear caused by a tumultuous sound. Let's see. I'll do a couple more. Oh, madness. This is a funny one. So Srimati Radharani, out of her ecstatic love for Krishna, sometimes acts like an addled person and attempts to churn yogurt, although there's no yogurt in the pot. And seeing this, Krishna becomes so enchanted by Radharani that he begins to milk a bull instead of a cow. So this is just really nuts. And then another example is Mother Yashoda. It says, Mother Yashoda, when she saw that Krishna jumped into the Yamuna that had been poisoned by Kaliya, she went totally insane. And instead of searching for some curative herbs to be able to, cure him from the effects of the poison, she started just going around speaking to the trees as if they were snake charmers. It says, with folded hands, she began to bow down to the trees, asking them, what is the medicinal herb that can check Krishna's dying from this poisonous water? So she's talking to the trees. So all of these, these are just some little samples of some of the ecstatic emotions that devotees feel in relationship to Krishna. So we can see that pure bhakti, our love for Krishna, is emotionally turbulent. And we see this also in the example of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, right? Especially his Antya Lila, where he's in Jagannath Puri and he's meditating on Radha and Krishna's pastimes. And he's experiencing so many ecstatic emotions, very turbulent emotions, right? Where he's scratching himself, he's beating his head against the wall till it's bleeding. He's it's just very, very intense. And the devotees who are taking care of him are in anxiety 24/7. They're so concerned about him that he's going to be okay, because the emotions are overwhelming. And he's also exhibiting all these ecstatic symptoms of the body, crying tears, soaking himself with tears, and sometimes his body is changing form and so forth. And the 6 Goswamis also, it's described that they experienced very strong emotions, right? There's one verse from the Sat Goswami Astakam that goes, Premon madhavashada shesha dashaya grasto pramatto sada. So this prema, unmada, the madness of love, it would seize them, right? Grasto means it would grab them. The English word grab comes from this. They would be grabbed, seized by this madness of love. And vashat means by force, forcibly. They would experience ashesha dashaya, unlimited. Ashesha means without end. Dashaya different ecstatic symptoms. And pramato means that they would become like madmen, going through, and then in that madness, gayanto chakada hare gunavaram bhava vibhuto muda. They would be wandering around Vrindavan, sometimes at Radhakund, sometimes at Govardhan, sometimes by the Yamuna, just singing and dancing and being overwhelmed in ecstasy and calling out, Krishna, where are you? Radharani, where are you? So like that. We see all these examples of pure devotees experiencing a lot of emotion, and emotion that's very hard for us to understand. So we shouldn't think that the goal is to become just emotional equanimity. That's in relation to material emotions, yes, but we should look forward to actually experiencing real emotions, ecstatic emotions in relation to Krishna. And all of these emotions, even though some of them seem negative, like fear or anxiety or disappointment, they're actually all just different flavors of ecstasy. Right? It's ecstatic love for Krishna, and the happiness that comes from loving Krishna comes in different flavors. But none of them are negative. They're all very intensely positive. So then that brings up the question that what about our emotions now, right? We're not on the level of Devaki or Yashoda or Nanda Maharaj or the 6 Goswamis, but we have our emotions. So how do we understand those emotions, and how do we navigate them in the context of our devotional service to Krishna? So presently, our emotions are usually mixed, right? Mixed at best, let's say. That they're partly coming from ego, false ego. They're partly coming from our conditioning. And then they also may be partly coming from a genuine attachment to Krishna, attraction to Krishna and the service of Krishna and his devotees. So this is normal. And we shouldn't try to imitate the advanced emotions of pure devotees, because if we do that prematurely, we try to feel like a gopi or feel like Mother Yashoda and try to somehow conjure up those emotions within our heart, like artificially, then it's going to ultimately lead to confusion and disappointment, because, the truth always comes out in the end. We can't be someone that we're not. And it might come to pride if we, try to convince others that we're on a stage that we're not, and we're experiencing emotions that we're not really experiencing. So we shouldn't try to push it, imitating emotions that we don't have. And we also shouldn't get too mental or analytical about our emotions, right? We shouldn't overthink it. I'm feeling some emotion. Is it material? Is it spiritual? Because ultimately it is what it is, and we can't really do anything about it. So instead of trying to intellectually analyze our emotions like that, we can ask ourselves, who are these emotions for? Right? Who is at the center of these emotions? Is it me or is it Krishna? And if the answer is that it's me and my false ego, then just shift it to Krishna. Right? So that's what to do with our emotions. That whatever we're feeling, just direct it towards Krishna. Even if it's a negative emotion, right? Even if somebody mistreats us and we're angry with them, then don't blame the person, just blame Krishna. Just get angry with Krishna. Krishna, why did you bring this person in my life? Why did you put me in this situation? Right? And as soon as we direct it towards Krishna, then immediately we start to get some realization. We come to the spiritual platform. So everything we can just, and use the power of the emotion, because emotions are very powerful. They're very driving, right? They push us to do things very, very strongly. They push us to do things that don't even make sense, right? So use the force of those emotions to push us to Krishna, to move us closer to Krishna. And Bhagavatam mentions that, right? There's a verse from the 10th canto that says, Kamam krodam bhayam sneham, aikyam sohridam evacha, nityam haro vidadato, yanti tan mayatam hite. So it says that for whatever reason that one approaches Krishna, even if one approaches Krishna in lust or in anger, right? So we have examples like Kubja. She's this Mathura woman, and she sees Krishna and she's like, whoa, he is very handsome. I want to get his attention. And she goes and puts sandalwood on him. So yeah, after she invites him over to her place. So she approaches Krishna in lust, right? It's basically pure lust. But she approaches Krishna. She directs her lust towards Krishna, not some mundane man. And then by that, she gets Krishna's association and she gets purified. She comes to the spiritual platform. And then anger. We have like Shishupal. He was always angry with Krishna. He was always just, trying to do something bad to Krishna, insulting Krishna so many times. But then he got delivered by Krishna in the end. And he got liberated and, attained Vaikuntha. And then Bhayam, fear. So we have the example right here of Kamsa, that he's directing his fear to Krishna. And then what's going to happen? He's also going to get purified and be delivered. He's going to be killed by Krishna and get liberation. And then Sneham means affection. So many devotees have affection for Krishna. Or you could say like, the ladies of Mathura, when Krishna enters into Mathura, they have all this affection for Krishna. And that brings them to the spiritual platform. And then he even says Aikyam, those who want to merge into my being. But if they bring that to me, right? If they come to me, like even impersonalists, sometimes they'll pray to Krishna, please let me merge into your impersonal Brahman effulgence, But because they're praying to Krishna, because they're approaching Krishna, like Shukadeva Goswami, he was an impersonalist, but he heard some verses about Krishna and he became attracted, and then he approached Krishna, not knowing that Krishna was the goal, but then he got purified from his impersonal conception and he became a devotee. And then Sohridam means friendship. So when we want to be friends with Krishna, then Krishna will accept us as his friend and he will reciprocate and we will become purified. So in all of these ways, he says, Nityam haro vidadato yanti tanmayatam hite, that they become absorbed in me and they come to the spiritual platform. So any emotion can function, the same emotion can function in opposite ways. So we are going to feel emotions one way or other, either materially or spiritually, or mixed. We're going to feel emotions. So, for example, if you're feeling guilty because you did something wrong, so you can either hide, you can either try to conceal, cover up your mistake and distance yourself from the devotees so that they don't come to know what you did and, condemn you and whatever. Or you can pray to Krishna. Or you can take your, whatever it was to a trusted devotee and, reveal your heart and mind, confess, and ask for help for how to deal with whatever tendency it was that brought you to do that thing. So it can either become something that distances us from Krishna and the devotees, or something that brings us towards Krishna and devotees. If we're feeling happiness often leads to a mood of material enjoyment. Oh yes, now I'm going to enjoy myself in this world because good things have come to me. I'm going to use it for my sense gratification. But also happiness can bring us to gratitude to Krishna. Thank you, Krishna. You're so kind. Everything that's good in my life is due to you. Let me just offer myself back to you. Let me surrender more to you. Let me reciprocate with your kindness by serving you with more. And then anger can either fuel the false ego, right? In somebody like, let's say, Ravana, who gets angry and then he wants to kill Lord Ram, and that. Or it can also fuel our service to Krishna, like in the case of Hanuman, that he becomes angry and he wants to dedicate himself more to serving. He burns Lanka and he's enthusiastic to fight in the army of Lord Ramachandra. So Rupa Goswami says, Yena tena prakarena mana Krishna niveshayat, that somehow or other one should fix one's mind on Krishna by any means. So whatever it is, whatever emotions, just use those emotions to fix our minds of Krishna. Somehow or other, just remember Krishna. And when emotions come up, we can expect, like Devaki, even if we're not on the level of Devaki, emotions work the same way, that they can often be very contradictory. So as sadhanas or practitioners of bhakti, we can expect that our emotions are going to be contradictory, right? Like on one level, we trust Krishna philosophically, right? We know Krishna's God, we know he protects his devotees, and we know he's the supreme controller. And so philosophically, theoretically, we trust Krishna, right? That he's in control and it's all going to be good. But still, if we're walking down the street and all of a sudden somebody comes out with a knife, we're going to be afraid, right? We're not going to be like, all right, Krishna, you're the supreme controller. I totally trust you. It's all good, So maybe somebody will be, maybe a pure devotee will be, but most of us are going to panic, right? So yeah, this So we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves that, oh, where is my faith? What kind of devotee am I on? But we should just kind of note it and use it as information, right? Don't use these emotions as identifiers that I am faithless, right? Because I panicked in this situation. I didn't trust Krishna. We shouldn't use them to identify ourselves, or that, let's say sometimes we're practicing Krishna consciousness for many years, and then we can be just feeling very dry. We're not tasting the nectar that we're always anxious for. We're feeling just kind of empty. So we shouldn't start thinking, oh, this feeling of emptiness means I'm just a loser, my bhakti is useless, I haven't made any spiritual advancement, I'm an offender. But we should use it as information that, okay, I need to improve. Krishna is asking me to surrender a little more. Or maybe I need to shift my service. Maybe the service I'm doing is not the most pleasing. I can do something. Krishna wants me to do something else. Let me find out what I need to do, what I need to adjust. So, like this, use our emotions as information for how we can improve our service. And then, whatever happens, whatever we're feeling, good, bad, or indifferent, just keep serving, right? Continue our service, continue our sadhana, no matter what we're feeling. Don't worry if you're not inspired. You don't have to be inspired to serve. Just keep serving. And Krishna appreciates that, right? Krishna appreciates that even if we're not feeling the bliss, we still sing and dance in kirtan. Even if we're not inspired, even if we have an argument with devotee, even if the situation is not great, even if we're physically not feeling well, we still try to the best of our ability to do our service. And then this actually makes us eligible for Krishna's mercy. It makes us eligible to go back home, back to Godhead. Right? Krishna says that tate nukampam susamikshamano punjana evatma kritam vipakam ridvag vapudir vidadan namaste jiveta yo mukti pade sadayavak. That whatever, even if we're suffering miserably, just take it that, okay, whatever, this is probably due to my karma, or maybe it's Krishna making some arrangement in my life for my purification. But I'm just going to go on serving Krishna with Hrid Vag Vapu, with my heart, with my Hrid Vag means words, with my speech, and with my Vapu, my body, everything, my whole being. I'm just going to keep serving Krishna no matter what. And then Jiveta Yo Mukti Pade Sadayabhak, that Mukti Pade, that we attain the position of, we achieve the liberated position, even in this life. So, a little bit about emotions and the nature of the emotions of pure devotees like Devaki, how sometimes they're contradictory and confusing, but they're coming from a place of love and purity and relationship, and they're beautiful, and we should aspire for those emotions. And a little bit about how to understand and use our own emotions at our current level to bring us closer to Krishna. So, any questions or comments? Yes, Lalita Sundari.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you for nice class, for giving so detailed description of different kinds of emotions. You gave examples of transcendental emotions towards Krishna. Can you give some examples of transcendental emotion towards devotees? So one I was thinking about is a guru towards a disciple. And is Kunti Mataji's, Kunti Maharani's anxiety for Uttara, was that also transcendental? Or
Kunti Maharani's what?
Kunti Maharani's anxiety towards Uttara when the Astra was released towards Parikshit Maharaj when he was in the womb, or any other examples you can think of?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean basically all of the same emotions that we can feel, that a devotee feels towards Krishna, we can also feel towards Krishna's devotees, right? And at least most of them. So we can be anxiety, like I gave the example of the pujari cooking for the deities. If you're cooking for your guru, you're also going to be in the same anxiety, right? Same exact thing. Or even, senior devotees that are coming, you're having a house program or something. Oh, is everything going to be okay? We want to make sure that there's enough space for everyone to sit, and, enough prasadam for everyone, and, all this. So, yeah, it's the same. Just trying to think of some emotions. I mean, like the parental affection that Devaki has towards Krishna, devotee parents can also have for their devotee children, right? That I want what's best for my child's Krishna consciousness. I want to, I'm raising this child as a service to Krishna, understanding that this is Krishna's devotee, that he's put in my care. And so I want them to grow nicely. I want them to be healthy. I want them to be happy. I want them to be Krishna conscious. I want them to guide them in such a way that they're able to make the best use of this lifetime for going back home, back to Godhead. So there's a lot of emotion involved there, right? There's, happiness at their achievements, happiness when we see them embracing Krishna consciousness. There's disappointment sometimes when we see them, as they get older and making bad choices. There's anxiety or fear. So all these emotions, right? So that's in relationship to devotees. There may be even devotees that we're a little afraid of, right? Like some devotees that are a little heavy, and you see them, you're like, oh my God, what are they going to say to me now? Right? So, but that's transcendental, because they have your best interest at heart. You know that even when they correct you, it's for your benefit. So, there's some anxiety there, but it's related to Krishna, right? Because it's in relation to a devotee and in relation to Krishna consciousness. And, we don't like getting our faults pointed out, so it can be difficult, but we know it's good for us. And, Okay? Yes, Mr. Bhagavan.
In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes devotional service, yoga, the process of devotional service, the obstinance of the absolute. And then he goes into a whole chapter about the demons, divine, demoniac nature. One verse about what divine is, then a whole chapter about the demons, how evil they are, and all that information.
Yeah.
So why does Krishna have a whole chapter of Bhagavad Gita dedicated to talking about demons?
So that we can understand the demoniac mentality, right? So that we can use our intelligence to discriminate between who's good association and who's not, right? Because it's the material world, and there are a lot of people here with demoniac tendencies, so that we can protect ourselves and steer clear of those kind of people, right? One of the things that a Madhyam Adhikari devotee, middle-level devotee, is advised to do is to avoid the envious. So we need to be able to identify these things so that we don't get into situations that are unfavorable for our devotional service. And also so we can identify these things within ourselves, right? Because they say that, in previous ages, the demons and demigods lived on separate planets, and then they lived in separate countries, and then they lived in separate families, right? They have divine families and demoniac families, but in Kali Yuga, they live in the same body. So within the same person, within each individual, we have our divine tendencies and our demoniac tendencies. So when we hear the descriptions of the demoniac tendencies, we can identify, oh, shoot, sometimes I think that way, sometimes I feel that way. So we can note it, and we can try to work on it, pray to Krishna to remove those demoniac tendencies. Seeing those things, we can become humble and realize that I have a lot of work to do in Krishna consciousness. I really need to perform my bhakti, my spiritual practices with some intensity, so that I can get rid of these demoniac tendencies and have a mood and a life that is pleasing to Krishna. Yes, Anuradha.
Thank you for the nice class. I was inside, and when I was hearing when Devaki, she was taking anxiety in front. I mean, she was in fear in front of the fear personified.
Right.
And I was thinking that Prabhupada says that taking anxiety for Krishna is good. It purifies us. And we see when we do the service, every time we come for the service, so much of anxiety. But we again come. It's not that in the material world, when we take anxiety for something, we want to quit, we want not do it and get retired out of it. Prabhupada writes in the purport that there's no retirement for a devotee. because he wants to do it more and more, and we see it practically on the altar. Not that the pujari says, okay, it's too much to open the curtain at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's too much of pressure on us. They feel the pressure,
Yeah.
but they come with equal or more, enthusiasm to dress again and do the service again, whichever service it is. And I was also thinking, when Krishna was in Vrindavan, all the demons were attacking and so much of trouble. But Brajavasis were much more in bliss than when Krishna left, and there was no more demon, no more trouble, nothing. But they were in, of course, that's a different mood, separation, and, Vipralamba Bhavan, etc. But if you see, they were in much more stress, not having Krishna and not having demons. They rather have the demons and the trouble in life and then have Krishna, because Krishna can give so much of pleasure, bliss, is what I was thinking when you were saying.
Yeah, that's nice. So better to have all kinds of trouble with Krishna than to have a peaceful life without Krishna.
I was hearing a class from Bhagavad Gita class, Mataji was giving in Vrindavan, and she was asking, and I said it in the class also where I gave that, will you go back to Krishna if the anxieties are still there? And then devotees were arguing, but this is Vaikuntha, Vaikuntha. So Mataji was saying that, how we fear the anxiety, and if we think that we don't want the anxiety and that's why we want to go to Goloka, that means we're still thinking for us and not for Krishna. So I was just meditating in all the points, bringing together. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you. Very nice comments. Thanks for sharing.
I just had a thought. I used to facilitate like detox treatments. I work with different doctors and we help people with detoxing. And one thing I always tell people is like, when you're going through the detox, you're gonna feel terrible. Like, let's say you got food poisoning, right? You have to sweat it out, you have to vomit, or you have to use the toilet, and it's not fun. It feels very bad when it's happening, but once you release that toxin out of your body, then you feel great. Versus if you just didn't ever do a detox and you're just holding that in you forever, you're just gonna constantly feel terrible. And that's kind of what I feel like a fruitive activity is. It's like, oh, I feel good or bad, or I feel anxious or angry, but I'm gonna hold it inside me. Versus making it transcendental is accepting that even that process may not be enjoyable, may not be fun, but you will transcend it by releasing it.
Yeah, so there's we shouldn't, repress our emotions or deny our emotions, pretend they're not there. But yeah, we need to connect them to Krishna, direct them to Krishna, purify them in Krishna consciousness. Okay? Anything else? All right. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo.